1972. At that time, Hong Kong was still under British rule. During the grand opening of the city's first underwater tunnel, Victoria Harbour Tunnel, which connected the island to the mainland, two local billionaires took the stage. Both were playboys and philanthropists, but one of them was also a true genius. That man was Paul Wagner, the chief designer and supervisor of the entire tunnel project. After the ceremony, Mr. Wagner, his wife, their nanny, and their twin sons headed home to their mansion. Over the radio, Wagner dismissed his loyal assistant Frank, who had always been by his side, even in matters requiring force, and followed behind in a separate car. "Are you sure you don't want me to escort you?" Frank asked. "No need," Wagner replied. Frank mentioned that he'd left a gift in the glove compartment, a cigar box with Wagner's initials and a handmade lighter. Moments later, after Frank had driven off, an unknown car began tailing the Wagners. "Is that you behind me?" Wagner asked over the radio. "No, it's not me," Frank answered, quickly making a U-turn and racing back toward the mansion. When he arrived, armed men with grim faces were already waiting outside. A hulking man named Bolo opened fire on the car with a shotgun. A fierce shootout erupted, and in the chaos, Paul Wagner was killed. From a distance, Wagner's business partner watched everything unfold, standing beside a mysterious Chinese associate. Soon after, Wagner's wife was also ruthlessly gunned down by one of the attackers, a man named Yen. Just as Yen prepared to kill the infants, Frank arrived and eliminated more than a dozen gunmen with precise shots, including the brutal enforcer. He shouted to the nanny to grab the babies and run, which she did. But seconds later, Frank heard a baby crying inside the car and realized the nanny had managed to escape with only one of the twins. The wounded Bolo rose again, like a machine, and managed to shoot Frank in the shoulder. While escaping, Frank caught sight of Wagner's business partner and finally understood who was behind the massacre. By morning, the nanny left one of the babies at a Catholic orphanage, while Frank secretly fled Hong Kong with the other child. 25 years later, one of the twins, Chad, whom Frank had raised as his own since the boy was 6 months old, now worked at Frank's fitness club and clearly enjoyed his life. Spoiled by female attention, Chad was charming, confident, and loved showing off. One day, a detective came to see Frank and asked Chad to substitute for him in a martial arts class. Among the students was a troublemaker who decided to tease Chad about his appearance, saying he didn't look like a fighter. Chad responded with a quick, clean kick that shut him up immediately. Meanwhile, in Frank's office, the detective showed him a photo of the other twin, Alex, who had become a well-known figure in Hong Kong's criminal underworld. Frank didn't go into details, but told Chad they had to fly to Hong Kong on an important mission. "After 25 years, now you tell me this?" Chad muttered. At first, he didn't want to leave his comfortable life surrounded by beautiful women, but Frank eventually convinced him. When they arrived in Hong Kong, Chad was amazed by the city's vibrant skyline and modern infrastructure. He wanted to explore more, but Frank insisted they make a stop first. There was something important they needed to take care of. Wearing bright pink shorts and a carefree smile, Chad walks into a bar with Frank. The bartender greets them, pours a drink, and casually calls Chad boss, clearly amused by the man's unusual European style. Suddenly, an Asian man rushes in and hands Chad a thick envelope filled with Hong Kong dollars. Moments later, a tall blonde woman enters the room, locking eyes with Chad. She flirts openly, telling him she's impressed by his fashion sense, and then beckons him to follow her. Frank leans over and whispers, "Go ahead, see what she wants." Inside a private office, the woman boldly begins to unbutton Chad's shorts and is surprised to see he's wearing silk underwear. But before anything else happens, Alex bursts into the room and knocks Chad to the floor with a single punch. When Chad regains consciousness, he hears Alex furiously scolding his girlfriend for touching another man. "You, of all people, should know," Alex snaps. "I never wear silk underwear." Frank steps in and finally explains that these two men are twin brothers, separated by fate 25 years ago. Alex, hot-tempered and brash, speaks sharply to the uninvited guests and refuses to believe that this soft-looking stranger could be his brother. Still, Frank manages to convince Alex to at least listen. Frank tells them the truth. Their father had built the famous underwater tunnel, but midway through the project, he faced financial trouble and brought in a partner named Griffith. Behind his back, Griffith borrowed a large sum from the crime family, led by Zhang. Once the tunnel was completed, they decided to eliminate its visionary creator and ordered his assassination. They also planned to kill the newborn twins, ensuring that the entire empire would belong to Zhang and Griffith. But by some miracle, the true heirs, the Wagner brothers, survived. Their family had owned one of Hong Kong's most powerful corporations, and now the twins could reclaim what was rightfully theirs. Alex, however, has no interest in fighting the mob. He doesn't believe anything can be changed. Chad, on the other hand, is full of fire and ready to take a risk. To make sure they survive the criminal underworld of Hong Kong, Alex reluctantly agrees to help them navigate the city. As Alex ferries his guests to his private island, Frank notices an assault rifle beside him. "Planning for trouble?" he asks. "Always?" Alex replies with a smirk. A smuggling boat soon pulls up alongside them. Alex sells the crew 2 brand-new Ferraris destined for communist China. The car's trunks are packed with luxury contraband, cartons of Marlboro cigarettes, and crates of fine cognac. After being paid in cash, the buyers suddenly spot police patrol boats nearby. Panicking, they think Alex has betrayed them and try to take their money back. But Alex and Frank react instantly. They fight off the men, keep the money, and speed away without handing over the cars. When the police begin the chase, Alex drives the Ferrari straight into the water and shoots them, setting the cars ablaze. Flames explode into the night sky. Apparently, there really was cognac in those trunks. Later, over lunch, Frank asks Alex what he plans to do about their inheritance and the tunnel project. Alex's girlfriend Danielle asks the obvious question. "Do you have any proof? You'll need legal evidence of the company's takeover." She doesn't believe Frank's story about her boyfriend's murdered parents. Frank snaps, saying he witnessed the massacre himself. Shocked by his tone, Danielle storms out, leaving Frank speechless. Alex admits that Danielle works for Griffith and has always believed he was a respectable businessman. "Now she'll tell him everything," Chad says, "but maybe she can check the company archives first, see if there's anything about our father." Danielle reluctantly agrees. Meanwhile, Chad heads back to Alex's bar, where he's suddenly surrounded by a group of rough-looking men. Mistaking him for Alex, they draw their guns and order him into a car. The door swings open, and standing there is a familiar face, the same towering brute who led the attack 25 years ago. Inside the car, Mr. Zhang, the powerful crime boss who once financed Griffith's tunnel project, is already waiting for him. Chad is unsettled. The meeting caught him completely off guard. Jian proposes switching from smuggling liquor to running drugs. Chad, of course, has no idea that the man in front of him is not Alex. Jian then pulls out a cigar box engraved with their father's initials. At the sight of it, Chad literally feels his breath catch. They drive him to the docks and try to recruit him on the spot. Jian points out where and when the next shipment of powder will arrive, insisting that Chad move it through the channels he supposedly controls, effectively presenting him with a fait accompli. After that, Jan tosses away the broken lighter that belonged to their father. With a trembling voice, Chad calls him a scoundrel. For that insult, Bolo strikes Chad in the chest and orders his men to thoroughly beat the young man. Chad snaps back defiantly, but Bolo humiliates one of his own men by calling him weak, then proceeds to beat Chad himself. As a parting comment, Jean says, "If you ever come across some French cognac again, you know where to find me." After that, Chad is left half-conscious and dumped on the street near Alex's bar. There were about 10 men there. Chad says he could have handled them, but one of them was especially brutal, the one who laid him out. Chad describes the bruiser to Frank, and Frank immediately recognizes the description. After this attack, the brothers resolve to go all the way to make things right. Meanwhile, Danielle is digging through the archives looking for any lead, but she is interrupted by an overzealous security officer who starts questioning her in an intrusive way, forcing her to leave quickly. She calls Alex and tells him something suspicious is going on. Someone is watching her. Every time she goes into the archive, someone is lurking. Alex urges her to try one more time. "I love you," she says, and then the call ends. Alex brings everyone to a secluded island with an abandoned hotel. It will become their headquarters. He has also secured an arsenal for them, weapons of various calibers and everything they will need for the coming fight. That evening they head to the address Jean gave Chad, intending to sabotage his deal. Having quietly taken out several guards, they plant explosives on the ship. Alex tells Chad to cover him while he slips aboard and, before leaving, utters a line guaranteed to raise anyone's stress level to the breaking point. While Alex is stealthily placing explosive charges inside the vessel, An anxious Chad attempts to quietly take down one of the sentries. He makes a mistake and creates noise. Armed men working for Jean immediately converge on the sound. A fierce firefight breaks out. Despite the heavy gunfire, the brothers manage to break free without serious injury. In the end, they detonate the ship and destroy Jean's cargo. The explosion wipes out the illegal shipment. When they return, Danielle meets Alex and says she could be fired for being too nosy in the archives. She repeats her distrust of Griffith. To her, he is no more honest than the rest of the supposed respectable businessmen. After a brief, intense kiss, Danielle adds that Griffith has called an emergency meeting at Jean's club that night. It may be connected to the earlier incident. At the club, Griffith celebrates with his partners the purchase of a new liner and reveals that a serious incident occurred the previous night. They nearly lost a massive shipment. He suspects one of his associates betrayed them and orders his security team to take action. Cool idea, killing off your partners while your main partner runs his mouth left and right about upcoming deals and deadlines. Alex carries a crate of explosives into the restaurant, disguised as the cognac Jean loves. At the door, a guard meets him. "Didn't expect to see you back so soon. Not a single scar left." Alex asks the guard to deliver the cognac to the boss. Jan recognizes the bottle as coming from Alex and remembers that Alex knew about the deal. Maybe they just killed the wrong man. Jean orders his men to find Alex. Meanwhile, Chad brings another identical crate in through the service entrance. Frank, holding the radio detonator, waits his turn in the dining room, sitting with some escort. A guard approaches Chad and orders him to follow him to the boss. Frank gives Chad the signal. Seconds later, a blast shakes the building, powerful but uncontrolled, meant to disorient rather than kill. What follows is an all-out brawl, where both brothers unleash their fighting skills and courage. Jean and Griffith realize that Alex has a twin brother and finally understand who these two really are. The brothers, with Frank, successfully make their escape from the scene. The next day, Danielle, still searching for answers, finally discovers the documents she's been looking for. But just as she does, a persistent female security officer enters the archive and begins an overly thorough search, clearly suspicious. From a nearby surveillance room, Griffith and Jean watch the scene unfold. Afterward, Danielle calls Alex, but Chad answers instead. Alex and Frank have gone into the woods to collect firewood. Excited and nervous, Danielle says she's found the evidence proving Griffith's crimes, but that she's being followed. Chad tells her to head straight to Alex's bar, where he'll meet her. Unfortunately, Griffith's men are listening in. With Alex and Frank still away, Chad decides to act alone. He jumps onto a speedboat and heads for the bar. When Alex and Frank return, they notice the missing boat and realize Chad has gone off by himself. At the bar, Chad meets Danielle. She shows him the documents and says, "Now we have proof. Frank was telling the truth about your boss." Meanwhile, Alex, consumed by jealousy and suspicion, calls his assistant. The man tells him Danielle is in his office, with his brother. Moments later, Griffith's men storm the bar, moving fast and precise. Hearing the chaos over the phone, Alex's temper explodes. In a fit of rage, he smashes the phone with his fist. Fortunately, the bar's manager manages to trigger a silent alarm to warn Chad. Chad and Danielle escape through a hidden passage, sparking a tense chase across the city. They barely manage to lose their pursuers, stealing a boat and speeding away across the harbor. But it isn't over. One of Griffith's elite mercenaries, a female fighter from his security team, leaps into a helicopter and tracks them from above, leading the enemies straight to their secret island base. Meanwhile, Alex, drunk and consumed by jealousy, starts imagining that his brother is having an affair with Danielle. The thought eats away at him until he loses control. When Chad and Danielle arrive on the island, they find Alex waiting, drunk, furious, and out of his mind. He lashes out, attacking both his girlfriend and his brother. A brutal fight breaks out between the twins, nearly driving Alex to repeat the sin of Cain. Frank rushes in, trying to break them apart, but takes a few hits himself. Finally, he fires his rifle into the air. The sharp echo brings everyone back to their senses. The madness stops. After the fight, they go their separate ways. As dawn breaks, a sobered Alex spots boats approaching the island, an entire army of Griffith's mercenaries. He sprints through the jungle to warn the others, and soon the battle erupts. Alex and Frank take down dozens of attackers, moving like seasoned warriors. Despite their efforts, Jean's men manage to capture Frank and Danielle. They're flown away in a helicopter, while the brothers eliminate the remaining soldiers. One of the captured mercenaries reveals where the hostages were taken, uniting the brothers once again. This time, they fight as one. Meanwhile, Griffith and Jean torture Frank, demanding to know where the documents are. But Frank, a hardened Vietnam veteran, doesn't break. Not from the heat, not from the pain, not from the beatings. The twins slip aboard the ship by posing as a hostage and his captor. Having fooled the guards, they pick off John's men one by one, cutting down anyone who stands in their way. Before long, each twin finds himself in a one-on-one duel. Alex goes head-to-head with a taekwondo master, wearing boots fitted with steel spurs. After several vicious hits, Alex turns the fight around and knocks the man out cold. Chad, meanwhile, faces a giant who hurls barrels like cannonballs. The brute clearly outmatches him in strength, but Chad uses agility and timing to his advantage. When another barrel comes flying, Chad vaults over it, catches the opponent off guard, and finishes the fight. Fuel spills from the shattered barrels, ignites, and triggers a chain of fiery explosions that light up the docks. Meanwhile, Alex descends into the lower level of the compound, where he comes face to face with the athletic female mercenary. A long and grueling fight breaks out between them. In the end, Alex gains the upper hand and defeats his opponent using her own knife. Catching his breath, he looks at his brother and says, "Take care of Frank and Danielle." Danielle smiles softly. Alex has finally learned to trust his brother. Exhausted but unbroken, Alex tracks down Gian, the man who has probably never lifted anything heavier than a glass of cognac in his life. To Alex's surprise, Gian puts up a strong fight. In a furious hand-to-hand battle, Alex ultimately overpowers him. Trying to save himself, Gian offers a deal, half of the fortune in exchange for his life. "So, you're offering me half of my own inheritance," Alex smirks. Without hesitation, he throws Gian off the crane, ending him once and for all. At the same time, Chad and Danielle find themselves trapped. Griffith tries to crush them by lowering a massive container with a cargo loader. Chad pushes Danielle to safety and dives into the water at the last second. Griffith fires into the waves, unaware that Chad has surfaced on the other side. Climbing into the cockpit of the loader, Chad activates the controls and drops a 20-foot container right on Griffith, ending his story for good. Finally, the battered but alive brothers embrace. Frank and Danielle stand nearby, relieved and smiling. Justice has been restored, even if it meant turning all of Hong Kong upside down. And that's how the film ends. If you enjoyed this recap, make sure to leave a like and check out the other movie stories on the channel.